Fear and Hunger is one of those games that hardly gives you any time to breathe, not to your character only but to you too. When you open the game, you are met with this opening image where you can see many of the game's characters like the girl that can be found in the cage on the first floor. It is said that at some point prior to the summer of 1590, the girl was imprisoned in a large cage within the dungeons of Fear and Hunger, situated in the kingdom of Rondon. What is kingdom of Rondon, you might ask? We're gonna get back to it. Even though we don't have the specific circumstances resulting in her being in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger, just from the fact how she acts when you act kind towards her, you find a simple dagger and it reminds you of when your father used to teach you about swordsmanship with a similar dagger. It looks suitable for children as it is too small for adults, so you decide to give it to the girl. She seems surprised to get a gift as this dagger. Seems like she is not used to kindness of any kind. The girl seems excited about the dagger. Also, when you were to find a doll and give it to the girl, she seems to like it. You can see in her eyes widening in excitement. The girl pets the doll gently. When you ask her if she's okay, she says scaredly yes. When you ask her again if she's really fine, she holds your hand for a second before letting it go. It shows that she has suffered greatly over the course of her young life. The game tells you that she's unused to kindness of any kind. She looks like a sweet and innocent child, but apparently she harbors within her an ancient soul, a literal fucking god. If we were to come back to game's opening image, you can hear a sound from a distance. The knocking is supposed to make you feel hopeless, to make sure you never forget what the dungeons were like. Once you enter the dungeons of Fear and Hunger, you'll probably have nightmares your whole life, following you, reminding you of the terror that you have faced. Then we can see an enigmatic fella. He's the captain of the Knights of the Midnight Sun. He's the motivation for our four protagonists to delve into the dungeons. He is known by many names: the Captain, the Prophet's One, the One of the Prophecies, the Messiah, the Yellow King, the Kaiser. But his real name is Lagarde. Like I mentioned before, he's the motivation for our four protagonists to delve into the dungeons. Let me tell you about Lagarde. Lagarde can be found in the level 7 catacombs in the right area. The condition that determines whether Lagarde is alive or dead are time-based. Reaching him within 30 minutes of starting a run will result in him being found alive, while taking longer will result in him being dead. If you consider it, it's a unique way the game not only tests you by making you redo multiple levels. If you consider it, it's a unique way the game tests you. Yes, you have to do that multiple of times. Why, you might ask? Well, there are many enemies that can literally fucking rampage your party in like every third move. I'm gonna be discussing the enemies of Fear and Hunger in the later part of this video. The game do test you by making you reach Lagarde in the starting 30 minutes of the game. It is so you have to do it under time pressure, making it even harder for you if it was not enough before. Kahara, a mercenary that was abandoned by his parents as soon as he was born and left to fend for himself. Darcy Catalyst, a knight with pure and righteous way of the warrior, she fell deeply in love with Lagarde, a priest Enki. His innate desire for knowledge became even more apparent at a young age when he was selected to become a dark priest. Ragnvalder, hardening in the freezing winds of the north, he's an outlander and he wants to take revenge from Lagarde for killing his friends and family. Ragnvalder is probably the most goated character in the series. If you go for the ending where Lagarde is dead, he literally stays in the dungeons and kill every enemy that he can find, that he finds evil. Let's go even deeper on the protagonists of the Fear and Hunger. Kahara, also known as the mercenary, was born unfortunately. Life in the capital of Eastern Sanctuary Jahati would prove itself to be very harsh and unforgiving for Kahara, as he was abandoned and left to fend for himself by his parents when he was a child. To survive in the capital, a young Kahara was forced to make difficult decisions: to become a pickpocketer, a burglar, or to struggle by trying to lead an honest life as a merchant. If you choose to become a burglar, you learn lockpicking. In my opinion, lockpicking is one of the most strongest ability Kahara can have. He can open some of the doors in the dungeons that can help him give resources and other books and stuff. Regardless of which career path he chooses, is his endless soul craved more than a mundane existence. When he grew older, Kahara would abandon his previous career and join various mercenary armies, mastering the dirtiest trick to stay alive. Eventually, he was taken in by notorious veteran highwaymen and becoming a member of his small group of bands of criminal and soldier. Together, they traveled their ranch, raiding and pillaging until Kahara found himself settling down in the kingdom of Rondon. Now, in a new land, Kahara would make a living for himself by working in the kingdom's underworld, tempted by the promises of money and opportunity. During his stay in Rondon, Kahara would end up becoming romantically involved with Celeste, a prostitute who was trapped at the kingdom's brothel. His relationship with her is what presumably made him decide to delve into the dungeons of fear and hunger in search of Lagarde, as the money offered by his bounty would allow Kahara to free Celeste. The fact that Celeste was pregnant may have strengthened his determination to earn enough money to buy her freedom. Despite feeling a sense of unease about the task from the outset, Kahara nevertheless accepted it, as he was promised a handsome reward if he was successful in retrieving Lagarde. If you were to not select Kahara as the main character, with it being implied that he may have been possibly subjected to sexual assault by his capture, for the sake of Celeste, you can also get the good ending of Kahara, but to do that you have to play Fear and Hunger in hard difficulty. It also kind of illustrates his determination to avoid returning empty-handed from the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. Even when his mission to rescue Lagarde proves futile, in order to get his ascending, you must obtain the king's crown hidden in Mahabra before leaving the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. It is the only time we can see Celeste's image beside Kahara naked. The game greets you with ending text. You manage to escape the dungeons of Fear and Hunger alive. It is a feat unheard of before. Not only that, you also manage to find valuable loot and would guarantee a wealthy future. The long journey back to civilization felt like a lifetime. You could not sleep as you constantly feel eyes lurking in the shadows of the night. The darkness, even though it was lighter than anything you experienced in the dungeons, it still sent shiver down your spine. As you finally found your way to the kingdom of Rondon, everything felt unreal. You felt you could not understand how people would live their life every day simultaneously as a great evil exists beneath their feet. You sold the ancient crown to the highest bidder. The amount of silver you got from it exceeded your expectations greatly. You also felt better getting rid of unholy artifact, as it kept reminding you about the darkness. You rose from the lowest class come to unnoble in a heartbeat. You bought your wife free from the labor she was forced to do in the red light district and settled down in a fancy manner. You got everything you ever dreamed of. You got most of the noble families on a leash thanks to your great wealth, taking any breadcrumbs you throw at them. You were living in the most extravagant manner with your wife, with no seeming worry about the future. Still, you could not sleep. Every passing moment you would still be grabbing on the hilt of your sword and staring at the darkness corner of your room, just waiting for the inevitable. You knew the darkness you witnessed would leave no survivors. It would still come for you one day. There are many endings in Fear and Hunger. 5 main endings you can get on the 2 base difficulty modes. First, Fear and Hunger, and second, Terror and Starvation. But playing on the hard mode will allow you to get character specific S endings, which are exclusive to this mode and requires you to complete special conditions. Throughout the 9 different endings of the game, you never explicitly told which endings are canonical. It's kinda confusing which ending is canon and which are not in Fear and Hunger, but we can confirm that because of Fear and Hunger Termina. With over 350 years passing in the game's world between the 2 entries, there is much information we don't gain insight to, but by going through all the books, characters, interaction and backstory presented in Fear and Hunger 2, we are able to piece together most of the puzzles of Fear and Hunger. The first ending we will be examining is Ending A, the God of Fear and Hunger. This ending is frequently regarded as the main story conclusion of Fear and Hunger, primarily due to its lesser contradicting nature and its profound influence on the world of the second game. You must rescue the girl from the cage in the starting basement area and have her in your party. As you enter the gauntlet area throughout the God of Depth mouth, this area can be accessed by cutting open all 3 God of Depth heart throughout the dungeons. One is situated in the level 7 catacomb, one in the deeper thicket area, and the last one in the present version of Golden Temple in Macabra, which can be accessed by defeating the Chains of Tormented One, the Enlightened One, and the Skinny Granny, which will cause no one, the Endless One, to give you her soul if you agree to take the girl to the bottom of the gauntlet. You must then defeat the nameless figurine to enter the temple, where the final heart of the god, the Depth, is located. There at the bottom you find her. She is the daughter of of the god, the man of the prophecy, and a girl. This union resulted in her being born with the soul of the Ancient One. After taking her to the bottom of the gauntlet, the music, the environment starts to be more devious as you go deeper into the gauntlet, walking over the bodies of the people that have been to the dungeons of the fear and hunger. The girl goes to the edge and looking into the distance where you cannot see anything, nothing but empty black space. You ask her to be careful to not fall, but the girl has other plans. Her expressionless face changes to a concentrated serious face, like she's both worrying you and pitying you, and she suddenly falls to the ground. She's shouting in pain. It seems her leg and hand have traded places. What is she? Is weird to look at. She is rolling on the ground even more furiously and intensely. The present changes to something more evil. As the darkness slowly disappears, God of fear and hunger starts to appear. She makes this grueling sound that might make even the hardest of people shit their pants. You attack her, and a moment later, she starts to grueling in pain and twitching from cold. Now she is in her second form. You repeat this pattern of being closer to death 4 more times, and finally the 5th phase appears, and after the fight it says your party was victorious. Then you saw a text appear saying, the god of fear and hunger acknowledge your suffering, and you fall to the ground. You get to the level 10, the bottom. You didn't thought there would be a level below 9, but there is as you crawl, cause both your arms and leg are non-existent. The god of fear and hunger says, why resist? That question must have crossed your mind at some point. The feeling that you have gone too far. The feeling that this will be one-way trip. So instead of resisting the inevitable fate, why not accept it? Just lie down and rest. There is beauty in this darkness that can be used to guide you to something new. The game ends and this text appears. You never escaped the dungeons. Your effort would go unsung, but your part in the greater scheme of things was vital nevertheless. You had a vital part in the birth of a new god. One that is not a mere new god, but one that rivals the older ones. You had the first-hand experience of witnessing the coming of paradigm shift the world is to go through in this new era. An era of the newborn god, the god of fear and hunger. They'll come to know this day as the Cruel Age, an age where a human-born god would finally rise after millennia of mankind's struggle as the feeble new gods. Maybe your fate was an act out of mercy, the last trace of compassion the newborn god shed after her true ascension. Your demise was peaceful after all. He or she acknowledges the player's suffering and grants a merciful end. Nilvan, the Endless One's goal was to create a god capable of rivaling the power of the old gods and ushering humanity into a new age. Following the creation of the gods of fear and hunger, humanity was plunged by their base instinct of fear and propelled forward by their hunger. This drove them to adapt and evolve through the suffering they have endured. Consequently, the gods of fear and hunger come to be worshipped by many in this era. As mankind advanced into the modern world, we see the god of fear and hunger terminated. This period of transaction become known as the Cruel Age. We know this ending is canonical because the god of fear and hunger is discussed at length in the lore of the second game. Even though she has since become a more obscure deity of many, she is even referenced in historical work. Her creation and influence on the humanity during the Cruel Age are detailed in the 4 pages of history books. When I first got this ending, I sat there for like an hour thinking about it. It's so awesome. Each time you went deeper, you thought, well, this is the end, right? And then you get to level 9 and go, this is the bottom, just a pile of corpses. But after the fight with the god, you are teleported to level 10, the bottom. What is this place? Why are there flowers? Is your pain so great you barely crawl, or is it the dungeons themselves collapsing all their weight on top of you? Is this where the god will stay in its physical form? What happens to our body? It's also kinda sad at the fact that the girl was fully conscious during all of this. Her transformation, the feeling of the attack, but at the end she still helps you rest well when you die. And in Fear and Hunger Termina, she helps you by giving you a free save. With this, let's talk about the enemies of Fear and Hunger. When you have to play the game, you are sure to meet the guard. He's like the zombie of a Minecraft, and if he kills you, he will rape rape you with his stinger and leaves you with a bleeding anus, and your legs are gonna be paralyzed in the blood pit, where if you travel a bit you will get to a place where there's nothing but dead bodies, and you have to interact with the dead bodies, and you will be able to summon Nashra. Nashra, the self-proclaimed doom and terror of modern man. He is an extremely powerful wizard studied in blood magic. The yellow mages seem to be his followers as well as followers of Grograth. He preceded Valzal in the Grand Libraries but was betrayed by the other new gods and wanted to enact revenge upon them. When confronting 3 of the 4 other gods, Nashra will have dialogue expanding upon the lore of the games, mocking their pitiful attempt at ascension. You would think, what can this floating black-haired disembodiment head with a thick mustache? But when you attack him, nothing happens. When you attack him again, nothing happens again. But this time, you can see something appear from the dark. It's massive monster that will instantly kill you. The game not only sets what you're gonna face, but also what you cannot defeat, what you cannot understand. When you were to explore, you will find the meadow that will have sex with you, and they are having an orgy. But when you play a bit further, you will definitely meet the elite guard. It's either you run away or take too much of broken bones or arms, but if you are to lose the fight, he will take you to the level 3, the prison, where he will proceed to let you crawl, and as you have lost both of your legs, and he will cherish the moment by chasing you around and beating you to death slowly and brutally. Just the game telling you you should run back now, or you might come to face with the Crow Mauler. Making a video on fear and hunger and not talking about the Crow Mauler should be a crime, because he's just a Mr. X of fear and hunger, almost impossible to kill, and his sole purpose is to ruin your run. His main attacks are Peck and Maul and Flock of Crows. Maul is a normal attack. Peck will literally blow the head of whoever he kills, and wait till you know about the Crow attack, which will, not kidding, will just turn your screen back. Like, I don't know what to explain here. Your screen turning black mean you either play the game with just guessing where you're going, or you just memorize every corner in the game like it's chess and you're Magnus, while other enemies are difficult to defeat. That's just madness. And plus Ultra, he is known for what he do best, ruining your run. Okay, let's talk about the Lizard Man. You will find him where you find Nashra, but if you were to lose to him, you will be taken to a place and he will peel every bit of skin from your body, and the last thing you see before dying is the people that were skinned like you, and you are told that you're bleeding extensively and your body is in a shock. Just to stay conscious, the pain started to feel excruciating and end of your run. I didn't talk about any other character other than Kahara, so I just put a segment in here to tell about other characters, because I think almost all the characters in Fear and Hunger are as interesting as Kahara. Enki the Dark Priest, he was born with the enlightened soul, and as a twin in an occult group had a weak, fragile body. Despite his talent for magic, was selected at a young age to become a dark priest. However, custom within the occult group dictated that only the strongest twin could live, and he was forced into a duel to death with his twin sister. Due to Enki having a feeble body, he was easily overpowered by his sister, but she spared him the killing blow, showing mercy on her brother. At this point, Enki had the choice to stab his sister in the back or accept defeat. If his sister is killed, he gains the favor of the occult and resurrect her with necromancy. During his ascension ceremony, later going to leave the cult in order to search for more knowledge. If Enki refuses to kill his sister, he is thrown into the well by the members of the occult and left to die. However, here Enki feeds on the insect and comes to learn their language, eventually gaining mastery over them, and he uses the bug to help him escape the well. He then makes the decision to leave his group quietly or seek revenge by lighting their temple on fire. Either way, Enki goes on a pilgrimage to pursue dark priesthood, learning all he can about blood magic, the gods and science. He was even given access to the libraries of Rondon, where he furthered his studies. After many years, he found he had reached the mortal limitation of knowledge, so he resolved to sacrifice himself to Olmir. We see this scene in the Endless Dream flashback, where Enki is being crucified by other dark priests. However, before his sacrifice was completed, he received a vision from the new god Nilvan, showing him his vision of the selfish man who is destined to bring humanity into the new era of greatness, and he became enraged by this as he didn't want it to be outshined by any other mortal, and ordered the priest to let him down from the cross, and immediately set out for the dungeons of fear and hunger to find the man of the prophecy, Laggard. Within the dungeons, we find Enki seeking more knowledge, as it can be found at two different small library locations. He finds the place he was seeking in the Grand Library of Mahavira, which contains secret techniques of gods and science that are hidden from mortal world. It would make sense that Enki would seek the golden throne to become new god and try to find enlightenment this way, but after defeating Val till the current enlightened new god, he warns Enki of the path and tells of his own folly, is trying to seek knowledge this way. About till then tells Enki there was one in his original party who sought a different path of enlightenment. We find this is the mysterious Nostradamus. We can find him in the mines, where he tells Enki about the path of the new godhood being misleading and that resisting it leads to true ascension and enlightenment. He then gives Enki the spirit anchor and accessory, which allows him to meet his new god version within the void. But resisting the temptation in Enki's ending, we can see he goes on to refuse new godhood and seek the knowledge of the Grand Library. Here he learns how to prolong his life and learns the secret within, eventually sharing what he learned of the gods within the world through his skin Bible, which we find in Fear and Hunger 2 Termina. Confirming Enki did follow the path of Nostradamus, and he is still very much alive in the second game. Ragnvaldr the Outlander was born with a tormented soul, which led him to live a life of struggle where his negative experience would spur him to grow stronger. He was born in the northern lands of Ornagad, a harsh kingdom where Ragnvaldr was grown up. The summers became shorter and the winter became longer, causing hunger to become too familiar with the people of the kingdom. Despite this, Ragnvaldr was trained in a way of war by his father and became adapted to fighting from a very young age. Once he was an adult, Ragnvaldr and the other warriors of the old guard boarded a ship and headed to west to find resources and riches for their people. The journey proved to be horrendous, and after months of sailing, the warriors still hadn't found land, leading many to succumb to the element and madness of cold, dark ocean. This caused some of the warriors to eat their fallen comrades to sustain themselves, and Ragnvaldr can make this choice himself or resist the urge to great anguish. Regardless, the crew ends up making landfall on a mysterious continent that turns out to be Darkland of Vinland. It was untouched by man and tainted by the ancient evil and deities, and the crew soon saw horror beyond their comprehension. Some lost their mind, while the few who remained sane were able to make it back to their boat, and with them they brought an ancient artifact, the Cube of Death. Bragging about or felt this object was a bad omen for him and his people. His suspicion come true on one unfortunate day, as when he returned from the hunting trip, he found his family and village had been slaughtered by a mercenary group called the Knights of the Midnight Sun, pillaged Olgard for the Cube of Depth, leaving Ragnvaldr as the sole survivor, and he soon set out to hunt the Midnight Sun's leader Laggard, who he learned was being held in the dungeons of fear and hunger. Upon arriving, Ragnvaldr swore Laggard would feel wrath and anguish worse than what he had experienced in Vinland. However, we learned from Ragnvaldr's ending he wasn't able to get the revenge he wanted from Laggard, so he set a new goal to get rid of dungeons every evil being possessed by a dark soul. After doing this, sets out to do the same across the world and dedicate himself to hunting monster and earn the title the God of Ultra-Violence. We also see he takes Moonless the cave wolf with him and starts a new family who carries on his purpose of hunting monsters, as Moonless is in the sequel and is a family friend of August, who we learn is Ragnvaldr's descent. Darcy Catalyst the Knight was born with a dominating soul, which makes her a natural born leader, with others being drawn to her can make her blind to self-criticism. However, she was granted even more fortune in life, as she was born into a wealthy noble family. From an early age, she was trained to become a holy knight of the kingdom of Rondon. Despite her noble birth, she was vigorously trained in combat, and after becoming a gifted fighter and one that was on a fast track to becoming a top knight, during her training she saw how Rondon was a corrupted kingdom that was claimed to follow the gods, but only rewarded unified the elite by expanding its range to surrounding kingdoms through power and bloodshed, with many civilians being slaughtered or enslaved in the process. This caused Darcy to lose her loyalty to Rondon, and she chose to run away from her family on her own wish. Regardless, she soon meets the leader of a small mercenary group named Lagarde, who she says in her spite of so-called Holy Kingdom, the common people gather around and followed Lagarde, and even Darcy was drawn toward his charisma. Despite her dominating nature, he ended up convincing Darcy to join his group, the Knight of the Midnight Sun, and she took up a high-ranking position due to her military experience. They grew in fame throughout the land, and Rondon sought to use them for its own benefit, but soon worried that the knight may become a threat to the kingdom and their reigns. Darcy notices that Lagarde has changed as well. He became obsessed with relics and artifacts that possess his ominous aura, and soon spiraled toward madness and decided to raid the northern lands of Old Guard. Here, he ordered the Knights of the Midnight Sun to kill all the villagers and take the Cube of Depth. This transgression was enough for Rondon to turn on the Knights of the Midnight Sun, destroying most of Darcy's comrades in the process and also imprisoning Lagarde. And after that, Darcy went on the dungeons of fear and hunger to save her captain. In Darcy's true S ending, sees her arriving to find Lagarde dead in his cell, but still strive to find a way to bring him back to life. She learns an ancient Selvian spell called Rebirth of the Beloved that revives Lagarde, or what appears to be him. What she brings back is much more violent and malevolent, but she hopes it will someday just be Lagarde. Well fellas, that will be all for this video. I know there are many things that are still not talked about in this video, but hey, I will be posting again, so there's another time for it. This video took a lot of time to make, so make sure to show any form of appreciation you can. That would be all.